Bienvenue à Paris! Hi, I'm Megan, a licensed tour guide and travel content creator, and I love Paris. And I've been lucky enough to visit here several times, starting from when I was 10 years old. So I thought that it would be fun to put together a video about things that I wish I knew before I traveled to Paris for the very first time. So hopefully this video will help you get your very best Paris experience. But before we get started, make sure that you click subscribe so you never miss a travel minute. Because I had so much trouble figuring out Paris since it's not on a grid system like New York, I decided to get an actual Parisian tour guide to help us out. So this is Sophie. I'm going to put her information about how to book in the comments. So how do we navigate Paris?
So actually, hi everybody, bonjour. The Paris system is pretty uncommon. What happened is that every time you're walking in the street, you should look at the street sign. But not only to the name, you should look at the number above the street sign. What does it mean? Actually, this is the number of the arrondissement. And the arrondissement is our district, okay? We have 20 of them in Paris. And the big specificity of the city is that actually Paris is made like a snail, comme un escargot, which means that here we are in the first one, so we are in the very center. Le Louvre is just the next block, okay? Very center of the city. And after, very easy to remember, it goes like this. So that's why sometimes you're gonna walk, for example, from the 4 to the 12 and be like, okay, what happened? But remember, it's because of the escargot.
My favorite place to stay in France is the 6th arrondissement. That's mostly because it's where my mom and I have stayed since I was 10 years old. So I have a lot of emotional memories to it. But we were talking and it seems like my impressions of the 6th are maybe a little bit different. So I was wondering if you would talk about your favorite places to stay.
Yeah, so basically it's been 12 years that I'm living in Paris. So I moved to different places and I know most of the arrondissement. For me, the 6th is quite nice, but it's not as authentic and it's not where the young Parisians hang out. We are most of the time in the east part of Paris. So for example, in the 10, the 11, or here we are this morning in the 12, but also more north around the 18, 19, and 20. So it really depends. After, for a more touristy and central district, even if let's be honest, Paris is so small that even if you're staying at the end of the 12, you're still 30 minutes from the city center. Let's not forget that. But I would say that Le Marais, if you really want to be close to the center, it's one of the best parts of Paris to live. It's between the 3rd and the 4th arrondissement. All this part is called Le Marais, and it's pretty nice because you are really in between the local life where we are and where most of the travelers don't go, except if you have a guide. And after you are next to the Louvre very, very quickly. And to be very honest, I wouldn't recommend to stay by the Louvre or by the Champs-Élysées if you want to live the Parisian experience, you know what I mean? If you stay 2 days and you want to be close to everything, so it's good for you. If you want to live like us, yeah, maybe prefer the east or not the very, very center.
I always get asked which hotels I stayed at. This last time I stayed with my mom in the 6th arrondissement at a hotel called Hotel Louison. It is a boutique hotel. Every single room is a little bit different. So we actually stayed in 2 of their rooms. The last one we stayed in had a private terrace that we could hang out on, and that was really, really special. There's also a breakfast that you can add on to your stay. The breakfast is really delightful. They have fresh scrambled eggs, fresh bacon, fresh pastries, fruits, cheeses. There's also a lighter, healthier version of the breakfast if you so desire. And then every evening from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., at least during our stay, there were aperitifs. So this is complimentary wine and light bites that you can have. Sometimes it's a great opportunity to mingle with other guests or just start your evening in France. So I'm a huge fan of Hotel Louison. Another wonderful thing about Hotel Louison is the amazing concierge team. They can help you do anything. They helped us book a cab, they helped us find a restaurant, they helped us book a train to Lyon. Literally the first thing. We haven't even checked in yet. I'm like, how do I book a train to Lyon? And she literally walked us through the whole process. So the concierge team here is amazing.
Happy to help.
So, I've actually visited Paris at a bunch of different seasons, but of course I don't live here. So I'm curious, Sophie, what you think about the best times to visit.
So I think it depends what you are looking for. Okay, we have different times that are pretty good in Paris, according to me. For example, if you have already been to Paris many times, August is quite interesting because the Parisians are not here and the city is pretty quiet. So if you are looking for quiet, Paris is nice, but just so you know, some places are going to be closed, but less people, less traffic. You can, for example, bike in the city. It's more safe for you at this time of the year. Otherwise, we have another moment, which is October or November. The tourists, the travelers are not here that much, so the city is quiet again. In terms of the weather and of like the beautiful sun, today is not a good example, but let's forget about it. Usually, April, May, and June are wonderful months. For me, one of my best weekends to be in Paris is around June 21st, because we have a huge party everywhere in France called La Fête de la Musique. Okay, and we celebrate music. And everywhere in France, and of course in Paris, we have people playing music everywhere. All the bars open and make a huge terrace. You have music everywhere. People drink alcohol, wine, or whatever, but in a safe way, as always. And it's a very, very cool moment to gather with the Parisians. So I would say, yeah, like May, June is nice. And also people love to visit Paris during the Christmas times. It depends if you're really into the Christmas decorations, but once again, it's gonna be crowded. And the last moment also to come when it's very quiet, it's January and February. Nobody, but don't forget your gloves and your scarves. But I'll be here no matter what.
You're gonna notice that the sunset time, at least compared to those in New York City, are very different. In the spring and summer, it tends to stay light much later than it does, at least in New York City. And in the fall and winter, the sun sets and rises at a different time as well. So right now it is the end of May. It is about 8:45 and this is the sky. It looks like 3 p.m. in New York City. So I think the sunset time is around 9:45 this time of year. And then if you come in October, which is the last time I came to visit, the sun sets quite early. It sets around 5 p.m. and it rises very late. I looked it up on December 20th. The sunrise, I believe, was 8:44 a.m. So if you come in the spring and summer, you're gonna have very long days. And if you come in the fall and winter, expect very short days and long nights. But the good thing about the long nights is you get to watch the Eiffel Tower twinkle more in the dark. One of my favorite things about Paris is that it's a really wonderful city for walking. It's relatively small. Of course, if you're really walking the full length of Paris, it's going to take you several hours to do so. But in terms of the top tourist locations, it's easy to walk from one place to another if you are a walker. Plus, I think it's really wonderful to get to see all of the beautiful architecture and buildings, and you get to learn more about the city if you do so. So bring your comfy walking shoes and prepare to walk, and who knows, you might get a surprise view of La Tour Eiffel the next corner that you turn. I am here in the beautiful Luxembourg Gardens in Paris to bring you a very important message about footwear. There are lots of people who are going to tell you not to wear sneakers when you come to Paris because that will make you stand out as a tourist. And while at one point that might have been the case, that is not the case today. I have been here for 3 weeks. Everybody's wearing sneakers. Locals are wearing sneakers. Tourists are wearing sneakers. I have asked our tour guides. I have asked my friends who live in Paris. I have asked the hotel concierges. They all say, yes, we wear sneakers. And the reason for that is you're gonna do a lot of walking in Paris. It's a great walking city. And as you walk, you get to see so many things. And you might also be walking on uneven ground, cobblestone. Right now, I am walking on pebbles. So if you bring your comfiest sneakers, that is going to make your life so much better in Paris. In terms of riding the metro or public transportation, I have a whole video about that, especially with how it compares to the New York City subway. So I strongly suggest that you check that out if you really want to deep dive into the Paris metro. I love the Paris metro. It is open, I believe, until 12:30 on weekdays and a little bit later on weekends. Now, for most people, probably the most economical thing to do is to buy single tickets. I find buying them very confusing, and you need to actually hold on to them. Sometimes you need to hold on to them to get out of stations, but also there are metro police that walk around and they want to make sure that you actually bought your ticket, and they will ask you to show them the ticket. What I do, it's probably not the most economical in most situations, but I buy a Navigo pass. We talk about the Navigo pass in my Paris metro. It's a little bit more expensive. I believe this was around $35 per person with the card and the weekly unlimited payment. But I love that I don't have to think about it. It's like comes in this nice plastic case. So for me, I just find that to be the easiest. But for everyone, you're going to make your own decision about what the best way to pay for the metro is going to be. Ubers and taxis are pretty good in Paris. Now, I've tried to take the metro or walk any place I had to go, but the few times that I've needed to take an Uber, either because it was late at night or I was running really late, I just used Uber. It showed up really fast. That hasn't always been the case in every city that I visited, but thought you should know that it's good to rely on, and you might want to download that Uber app before you come. Speaking of car services, if you're going to Charles de Gaulle Airport into like the heart of Paris, there are fixed rates depending on where in Paris you're going to go. But that's only if you go to the official taxis at the official taxi stand in Charles de Gaulle Airport. There's going to be people asking you to take a taxi. If you need a taxi before you get to the official taxi stand, just say no, get to the official taxi stand, and then you'll have that fixed rate. And the same goes for coming into or from Paris to Charles de Gaulle. There is that fixed rate as well. So you might want to call an official cab if you want to take advantage of that fixed rate. This was something that was very important to my mom that I mentioned, because she ended up getting a car service that cost over $100 to Charles de Gaulle Airport. And my fiance, when he came in, there was a fixed rate of €56 to where he was going in Paris. So you could literally save half of the fare by taking that official taxi to and from the airport. If you watch my videos, you know that I am a huge fan of taking tours. I strongly suggest when you're in Paris to take a food tour. I feel every time I've visited, I've taken a food tour and I learned so much. I learned so much about the French culture. I learned so much about where to eat and what to eat. David and I just took a food tour with Eating Europe. We took their Montmartre food tour. It was incredible. No notes. It was amazing. I strongly recommend that you take that tour. We tasted so many different types of food. The guide was so knowledgeable. I will put that in the comments below. I'll link that in the comments below. But no matter what, when you come, book a food tour. And they do tend to sell out, so that's something that you might want to book a few days in advance. Oh, and one more thing. I strongly recommend that you book the food tour at the beginning of your trip, because they're going to do things like tell you how to order the perfect baguette. And if you get to the end of your trip and book the food tour and realize that you've been ordering the wrong baguette all along, you're going to be kicking yourself. So do this early. Now, just taking it at all is better than no tour, but I strongly recommend doing it early. When you visit Paris, there will be some scams, even if it's not officially scams. It's maybe just things that are making you spend your money in a way that you don't want to spend it, or feeling pressured to spend your money in a way that you don't want to spend it. Right now, I'm in front of Sacre-Cœur, and there are people walking around selling locks, very expensive locks. What they want you to do is buy those locks, and then if you come over here, they're hoping that you will put the locks on these gates like that. You can write a little love message. If that's what you want to do on your vacation, I always tell people, be selfish. It is your trip. Do whatever gives your heart joy, but just be aware that's going to happen. There's also a lot of people walking around with little Eiffel Tower figurines. If you go out to eat, there might be people who actually come up to you in the restaurant and hand you a rose. They're hoping that you will buy that rose. So just, feel free to say no if it's not what you want to do. But if it's what you want to do, if you want to buy a rose for whoever you're eating dinner with, buy that rose. And if you want to put your name on a lock and put it on a gate, feel free to do that as well. It is your vacation. This is Refuge des Fondue, and this is my favorite secret in Paris. Only you need to reserve really early because it's actually not that much of a secret. David and I just discovered it by accident. I was Googling best fondue in Paris, and this came up as an option. We were really drawn because the pictures on TripAdvisor had wine and beer in baby bottles. So we showed up without a reservation. We got super lucky. We were the only people who got in all night without a reservation. You had to reserve at least 4 nights in advance. And it is such a fun experience. You get fondue, you get wine, you get appetizers, you get kheer, you get dessert. And it's only $31 per person, which is an absolute steal. I do consider myself a fondue expert. I loved the fondue. We got the cheese. You also have a meat option. So definitely book this in advance. It is so good. Also, you can write your name on the wall, the ceiling, the chairs. So we wrote at the Megan Daily, if you can find it on the wall at Refuge des Fondue, take a picture and tag us and let us know. Proof that we were there and loved it. So you just finished literally every last drop of your dessert, and it's time for the check to come. And you're wondering, do I leave a tip or not? And this is where things get really strange, at least for me as an American. Because in America, typically the servers are not paid a living hourly wage. So they're really depending on those dining to make up that wage with their tips. In Paris, the servers are paid a living wage. So what I am told from all of my friends who live here is that tipping is not customary. Now, of course, if you like the service, you can leave a few euro, and I don't think anyone's going to be mad or insulted if you happen to leave a 20% tip. But in general, tips are not expected, and there's not a huge tipping culture here. It's going to feel really, really weird because I'm so used to needing to tip to supplement that income. And again, no one's going to be mad if you do leave a tip, but typically, Paris does not have a tipping culture. I have visited Paris in the spring, the summer, and the fall. Now, especially true of the spring and the fall, you're really going to want to master layering. So right now it's the afternoon, it's in the 70s in terms of Fahrenheit, but it's going to get down to the 50s. So I always bring a jacket to put on for when it gets cooler at night. And depending on what the temperature's doing, sometimes I need more layers or less layers. In the summertime, it can get real hot. We're talking the 100-degree Fahrenheit, so you're gonna wanna definitely bring whatever you wear when it gets really, really hot. And in the winter times, my friends who live here say it can get very cold, just like New York. So you're definitely gonna wanna bring a warm coat. But if you're here in the spring and the fall, layers are going to be your BFF. Make sure that you pack those when you pack your suitcase. While we're talking about the weather, the weather can change really quickly. It's been kind of manic since we've been here with sun and rain and sunny rain and cloudy sun. So you might want to, invest in a very tiny umbrella if you want to bring it with you. If you are visiting in the summertime, this is very important you want to make sure that your hotel has air conditioning. Now, in the United States, I feel like almost every hotel has air conditioning. Not the case in Paris. So when you are booking, make sure, ask, call if you have to, send an email. Make sure that your hotel has air conditioning. Otherwise, you are going to be very hot and very sweaty when you sleep. If you have kids, you really want to take advantage of the parks all throughout Paris, including the Luxembourg Gardens. So here we have these like really fun little boats. I believe that it's $6 for 30 minutes currently to rent them. You're given like a stick and you kind of like push the sticks around. And they have areas here that are dedicated specifically just to young children as well. So it's a great place to run around and enjoy the outdoors when you come to Paris. Because there are so many amazing museums in Paris, it can be a bit overwhelming. So I thought that I would ask tour guide Sophie what some of her favorite museums are and which one she would recommend you visit during your trip to Paris.
Hi, bonjour. So among the big ones, I would say le Musée d'Orsay is very, very nice to visit. This is the biggest impressionist collection you can see in the world. And actually we can go there together because I do tours over there and I'll tell you all the secrets about the paintings. The other one, it's more personal, but it's the Cité de l'Architecture. It's about the architecture in Paris and in France. And actually it's just in front of the Eiffel Tower, but nobody knows about it and I don't know why, okay? And the other one is le Musée de la Vie Romantique. And this one, I really love it for the exhibition. They are very small, but also there is a garden where you can enjoy like a tea and a wonderful pastry. It's beautiful, especially during springtime. And this one is very secret. So let us know in the comments which one you're gonna visit.
I also want to say that in my opinion, when you visit a museum, of course you can visit it on your own and you will get so much out of it. But I personally always get more out of a museum if I go with a tour guide, because they will make like literally all of the works of art, all of the statues, all of the artifacts come to life. They really like inject it with like a human story. So I strongly encourage you to take a tour, and Sophie can give you a tour of a museum. Big piece of advice for when you do visit museums is try to go early in the day. You really don't want to go near closing time. Like if a museum says that it closes at 6:30, don't show up at 5:30 because they will be closing exhibitions, they will be pushing you out, you won't get to enjoy it. So you want to go earlier in the day so you ensure that you have the time to fully experience that museum. This is my best friend Kara, and I wanted to bring her onto the channel to talk about something that I've experienced a couple of times when I visited Paris. But before she talks about this mysterious thing, I want to let you know that you should subscribe to her YouTube channel. It is called Escape to Everdeen, and it's all about this amazing house that she bought in the Auvergne region of France. And
the mysterious second house that we accidentally bought. Check how many houses you're buying.
I mean, I hate it when I accidentally buy a second house, and she's like restoring it, and she goes brocanting and doing all of these amazing things. So make sure that you subscribe to that. I'll put that in the comments. But what I really wanted Kara to talk about are strikes. I don't tend to experience a lot of strikes that affect my everyday life in New York City, but I visited Paris a few times when there were various strikes. There was a transit strike this trip. Before there was like a garbage strike. So I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about strikes and how often they happen.
It's hard to say because we do have the reputation of striking all the time, and I won't say that's untrue, but it really can vary depending on what's happening. For example, last year we had a big uproar because Macron, the president, was trying to change the retirement age, and there were so many strikes There were so many strikes. The train company, the national train company, gave me money because of how many times they delayed my trains.
I do just want to say, I feel like, at least as someone who lives in the United States, when I hear strikes, I'm like, oh no, it's going to be violent. The streets are going to be crazy. The streets for the transit strike were crazy because there was a lot more traffic. But they tend to be like pretty calm and quiet strikes, right?
Most of the time, it's just something about the system is not working. Except for the time I got trapped in Germany by tractors, but that was different. But most of the time, it's just something that's not working.
A surprising thing to know when you visit Paris is that a lot of the stores, this is a chocolate shop, but also, boutiques, clothing stores, are closed on both Sunday and Monday. Some are just closed Sunday, but some are closed Sunday and Monday. So if you're planning a shopping day, you really want that to be Tuesday through Saturday. Now, my mom will sometimes plan her entire trip knowing that stores might be closed on Sundays and Mondays. So she makes sure to always give herself a Tuesday at the end of the trip, like a full Tuesday, so she can run back and buy anything that she was thinking about. So just be prepared to know that Sundays and Mondays might be a day when things are closed. In my personal opinion, when you visit Paris, you should really try to learn French. It's okay if you're not fluent in French, or even if you're not necessarily proficient, but I have found that locals are really, really receptive if you try to speak French. Most locals in Paris do speak English, but if you just come up to them and say, hey, do you speak English? They might be a little taken aback and they might not bring the English out. However, if you say, parlez-vous anglais, that simple phrase goes a really long way. Now, I've studied French since I was a kid. David's family speaks French as he's French Canadian. So if you speak French, that's even better. But try. Get Duolingo, get Rosetta Stone, take a class. Try to learn French for your trip to Paris. There are some useful phrases to know. I don't have the best Paris accent, so I decided to have the wonderful tour guide, Sophie, help me out. Again, if you would like to book a tour with her, I will put the link in the comments. So, Sophie, if I sit down at a table in Paris and I want table water, what do I order?
You order, so vous demandez de l'eau potable or une carafe d'eau. Une carafe d'eau is the easiest one and everybody is going to understand. You don't want to pay for the water, but the water is still good.
And then if I am looking for an exit in the subway, what am I looking for? What word?
You are looking for la sortie. Où se trouve la sortie, s'il vous plaît, or où est la sortie?
And then if I need to use the bathroom.
The bathroom means les toilettes. Où sont les toilettes, s'il vous plaît?
And then if I want to order a Diet Coke, what do I order?
You order, so vous demandez un Coca-Cola zéro, s'il vous plaît.
And if I'm entering a place for the first time and I want to greet somebody, say hello, what would I say?
You say, of course, bonjour and not bonjour. So try bonjour. Bonjour, comment ça va? Or bonjour, vous allez bien? It means, hi, how are you?
And then if I want to know how much something costs.
Combien ça coûte?
And then perhaps the most important one of all, how do I say thank you?
Merci or merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, it's thank you very much.
If you haven't learned French, that's also okay. A little trick that I've learned when I visit countries where I really don't speak the language or just have failed to learn the language is if I have Google Translate on my phone, I can always type things out in English and translate it to that language of the country where I'm visiting, and I can show that translation on my phone to whoever I'm trying to communicate with. So Google Translate might be your best friend. Any other translation app could also work as well, so just make sure you have that on your phone. One of my personal favorite things to do in Paris, I know it's super touristy, I don't care, I love it, and everybody who I take on this loves it, is to take one of the cruises down the Seine. It's a tour of the Seine. There are lots of companies that offer these. My personal favorite is Vedette du Pont-Neuf. I love Vedette du Pont-Neuf because they have a live tour guide. A live tour guide who translates things into both French and English. Now, if you speak a language other than French or English, perhaps you want to try Bateau Mouche. They have a pre-recorded audio recording. I think it was in 5 different languages. I personally like to gravitate towards live guides if I can, but if you speak Russian or Chinese, the Bateau Mouche might be a better option for you. And on these river cruises, you get to understand a little bit about how Paris is laid out, and you get to see everything from Notre Dame to La Tour Eiffel. This is maybe the most important piece of advice when visiting Paris. I feel like whenever I travel to a big city, there's a lot of pressure to not do the touristy things, to do all of these local secrets, off the beaten path things, and those are amazing. And we have done those on this trip and they have all been fabulous. But you know what else has also been fabulous? The really touristy things. So the Olympics are coming in less than 2 months. We just bought the Olympic mascot. This is Friggy. He is supposed to look like a Phrygian cap. I think the locals in Paris would probably scoff at me, but I love him. And this is a reminder that it's your vacation. So if you want to do the touristy things, do the touristy things. They are touristy, people go to them because they are awesome. I hope that this video has helped you get some tips and tricks for how you can have your very best trip to Paris. If you've visited Paris before, please feel free to share your favorite tips and tricks in the comments below so that everybody can benefit. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure that you click subscribe because it helps me bring you more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. Happy travels and à bientôt!
Royale with cheese. C'est le même.